I want to get a sense of whether folks are interested in having a special gathering. You may recall we did a post-session recap back in March, April with legislators on the West Side. And if you want to just give me a thumbs up, whether it's visually or using your thumbs up emoji, whether or not you're interested in participating in a gathering where we have the legislators talk about what's going to be coming up in the 2023 session, and perhaps giving us an opportunity to give them some feedback about that. So if that is of interest to you, I'm seeing some thumbs up. All right. Good, good, good. Okay. Well, we're going to see if we can make that happen. We've been talking to a couple of the legislators. They are interested. We'll see if we can coordinate that. I appreciate everyone's feedback. So our typical process here is to do a little lightning round announcements for people who have anything you want to share that might be of relevance to this group, of interest to people who are in the room. So we're going to take a moment to do that, and then we're going to transition to a presentation from Bridget Cooke and Olga Acuña on the Preschool for All campaign, and we will wrap it up with an update on what we've been doing in the behavioral health sector. I am going to mute Kimberly. And so for those who have something that you would like to share with the group, what I will ask is that you raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, so that I can then call on you one at a time and you can give your brief announcement. Just try to keep it to a 30-second or 1-minute announcement, and then we'll move on to the next person. So let me stop sharing for a moment so I can see everybody. And I see Karen. Karen, please feel free to share what you like.
Hi, it's my first time at this meeting. Thank you for having it. And I live in Beaverton, and I put my contact information through my website, Earth Neighborhood, in the chat. If people do have questions about almost anything related to the environment, social justice, or people's needs, I am a healthcare professional as well. I work for local insurance groups. And I'm particularly interested in farm issues and wanted to share today that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is currently working on systems that would assure food security in regions. And we have a couple of very active Oregon groups building structures and good communication between states and, regional states and groups like your school program that you're talking about, to have food for those kids and their families, as well as the school food programs. So anyway, that's me. Let me know if you need more information.
Yeah, and if you have anything that you think is you can share in the chat room, whether it's a link to a site that provides resources or information, feel free to do that. We're happy to have you. Thanks for being here. And does anybody else have a lightning round announcement? This is going to be like a record. We usually have 6 or 8 people who want to share something. Nothing's going on in your world that you want to tell us about? Yes, go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah, I know I'm going to be.
She's going to steal the stage one more time.
I know I'm going to be presenting to you all in a minute with Olga, but good morning, everyone. You may know that Adelante Mujeres, we're based in Forest Grove, but we manage 2 farmers markets, and the one in Forest Grove, we just have 2 more markets. One is tonight and the other one is next Wednesday. And it is combined with the beautiful Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead celebration. So if you're hankering for some more fresh produce and to bring your family out or your friends and come and have a good time, It starts at 4 and goes till 7 o'clock, and there'll be free champorado, which is kind of like Mexican hot chocolate, sort of, and pan de muerto, and some great activities, and a wonderful band, some dancers and so forth. So come and join us next Wednesday. I think that's the 26th from 4 to 7.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Katie, did you have your hand up?
I did. So Washington County Kids is going to have their second annual poster contest, After School is Cool. And so announcements will be coming out to encourage kids to do posters regarding their after school program.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Family Promise of Tualatin Valley has been very successful expanding our capacity. We have a long wait list, but we can't use the rooms that we have available because we don't have workforce. And so I know that's an ongoing thing and we're going to talk about it, but I just want to keep highlighting workforce is our barrier right now.
Thank you, Carol. And yes, I want to point out, Jenny shared in the chat that, we have a community events calendar. I oftentimes in my little Monday minute video, I share some highlights from the community events calendar. And if you have stuff that you're not seeing on our calendar and you'd like us to consider putting it there, feel free to send that information to Jenny. And you can actually submit right online. Anyone else? All right. Oh, I see it. Rob, feel free.
Good morning, everyone. I'm relatively new to this group, though I know I've interacted with a few of you before. I work at the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce. I am the Director of Small Business Support and Development for our program that's called Impact Beaverton. It's a collaboration between the City of Beaverton and the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce, where we provide free technical business support for any business in Beaverton or nonprofit. I have a lot of background working with nonprofit organizations and have recently been tapped into Washington County's Child Care Association or support agency and helped several local child care businesses write preschool promise grants, and they got funded, and that was really cool. And I've done a lot of other work. I'm helping people who run a counseling practice to expand practice, people doing social services. So if you have a business or a nonprofit and you would like to talk to me about ways to expand your business, grow the business, anything technical support in terms of signing registration, I'd be super happy to help, and I look forward to learning a lot more about all of you as we go through the meeting today. Thanks.
Love it. Thank you, Rob. Anyone else? Okay, if not, I am going to allow Bridget and Olga to introduce themselves, and I'll go ahead and be your driver for the PowerPoint. So take it away, Bridget. Or Olga.
All right, it looks like Olga hasn't quite yet joined me. I think maybe she thought we were starting at 8:50.
Well,
that's all good, Glenn. I could get started
okay.
Because one of the first things we're going to do is invite you to do a little sharing. So Olga Acuña and I we're the co-chairs. We still are the co-chairs. We've had various phases of this working towards preschool for all in Washington County. You are probably all aware that Multnomah County passed universal preschool a few years back, and they have kicked off their universal preschool with record numbers. I mean, record, of course, in the sense that this is the first time, but they're ahead of schedule in terms of the number of children that they're serving. So we're very, very excited about that. And we have, as you probably know, a very similar challenge for families accessing quality childcare and quality preschool. So this initiative, we started this officially a little over a year ago, and there's been a large group of us meeting since then. And what I'd like to just start with, because it's sometimes preschool, if we're a grandparent, it was a long time ago, if we're a parent, we're sometimes just so enmeshed in the day-to-day that we can kind of forget or don't have the opportunity to pause and think about our own preschool experience, whether you as a parent or you even as a child. So Glenn, are we able to do the breakout groups? Wonderful, thank you. So you're just going to be paired with somebody you may or may not know, and you can go to the next slide, Glenn. And the question is, or the invitation is a very simple one. Just talk to the person in your breakout group, a personal experience or one from your local community of preschool. And so go ahead and open those groups.
So we'll just have about 5 minutes, folks. It'll automatically close after 5 minutes, but you can come back. I hope that was, it's always a little bit of a mystery as to whether or not folks are going to end up in the breakout rooms they were assigned and whether they were actually sitting in front of their computer when we assigned them that breakout room. And so I hope everybody had a good conversation. And I'm going to hand it back to Olga and Bridget.
Thank you, Glenn. If we can go to the next slide, that would be great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Olga Acuña, and I am co-chair with Bridget Cooke of the Preschool for All Washington County Initiative. Our objective today is to help you understand the opportunity in front of us for Preschool for All in Washington County, and also get into the weeds of policy framework and the referral process. Next slide. Excellent. Here you will see a return of an investment. There is a large body of research on early brain and biological development that tells us that the sooner children have access to enrichment early learning experiences, the sooner that they begin to develop the key social, emotional, and academic skills that they need to succeed in life. The same research tells us that preschool is one of the most cost-effective ways we can intervene early to support their development. As you can see here, the earlier that we intervene with the support for children, the greater our likelihood for impacting long-term outcomes and the greater our return on investment. Next. One study here that you see emphasizes the impact that preschool can have on community, and the research is the Perry preschool study. This is a longitudinal study that followed the trajectory of children who participated in the program and a group of children that did not participate over the course of their lifetime, and they followed over the course of their lifetime and found that the Perry preschool students experienced positive outcomes across their lifetimes. And just to share with you another research earlier this year, the Heckman Institute published a study on the intergenerational impact of the program and found substantial second-generation effects on education, employment, crime, school suspensions, health. Children of participants were less likely to be suspended from school, to graduate from high school, and to be employed. So it is an exciting new research that further underlines the importance of high quality preschool as a strategy for improving quality of life and outcomes for our community. Next slide. It also goes without saying that your employees need reliable quality preschool and childcare in order to come to work. The United States Chamber of Commerce recently published data that shows that when companies can provide childcare, employee absences decrease by 30% and turnover decreases by 60%. Preschool for All will build the sustainability into the community for our employees. now more than ever, it's more important because of the post-COVID world. We need preschool for all to stabilize the system and to bring preschool back so that your employees, our employees, have reliable places for children to go to work while they're, or to go to while they're at work. And I will pass the baton to my co-chair, Bridget, for the next slide.
Great, thank you, Olga. So in thinking about the challenges that families face in accessing preschool, we really break it into 3 different buckets, right? And the first is affordability, and then the second is workforce, and the third is infrastructure in terms of actually having those classrooms, right? So can parents afford it? Do we have the workforce that we need to provide the preschool that is critical to our community? And then do we have the actual physical spaces that are appropriate for children? So you'll see some of these bullet points. This, the Oregon has the 4th most expensive childcare in the U.S. And of course, as we know, Washington County is in the most expensive region in the state, which makes it doubly difficult for families to afford it. And it also impacts because of the high cost of living. Our minimum wage, of course, needs to be higher, is higher, but there is the negative implications of that are oftentimes families are making more than what the required income, so that they cannot apply for publicly funded preschool. So that's why we're looking at preschool for all, right? Only 15% of preschool children are publicly funded in Washington County. So there is 2,216. This might be a little bit old because I don't think this counts the preschool promise, the new slots for this year, but it's still not a very large amount of publicly funded slots for over 15,000 preschool children. And then when we look at the workforce issue, during COVID, there was an exodus from all kinds of fields of work, and childcare was certainly one of those that experienced that. A lot of classrooms were shut down. And then, of course, when they did open back up, the children were not vaccinated. And so that put our teachers at risk. So we did see a lot of folks leaving the workforce. Preschool teachers are making about half of the median kindergarten teacher salary, and yet they probably have the same education, right? They probably have a bachelor's degree, or in the preschool systems, you can work towards that, but you do need to obtain one to be the lead teacher. And a really interesting fact that I learned last year, I believe, that we have a lot of college majors who want to work with small children, and so they're getting their degrees in early childhood education. But within the Portland metropolitan area, so Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas, only 14% of college graduates who have a degree in early childhood education and are working in early childhood education. So that means 86% are doing something else. And if we ask why, right, we can know there's a lot of stressors on early childhood education teachers, but certainly the pay is, and just the recognition and acknowledgement of how central their role is to setting a child up for success. And critically important is engaging those parents, because we know that when you have young children, that's when you're most likely to want to be involved with the teachers, with the school setting, right? So beginning early really allows us then to develop and help parents see themselves as their children's primary teacher. We'll mention just a little bit here about a poll that we conducted last spring, I believe it was. And we asked if a program had different elements to it, like if it was full day, how supportive would you be? If it was had a culturally responsive, culturally appropriate services, how supportive would you be? And one of the questions we asked, how important was teacher pay to you? And that rated very high across all sectors. So that's exciting for us to know that there is that recognition that we need to pay teachers a fair wage. And then lastly, in terms of the infrastructure, yeah, there is a severe shortage of preschool facilities. And so we need to build this up as well. Of course, this is the most expensive piece. And so one of the things that we did early on, a little over a year ago now, was had an infrastructure and facilities work group that came up with some potential solutions. We do know that Multnomah County is moving forward, and they're eager to work with us, with a group of partners in Multnomah County, in looking at trying to be as creative as possible about how we can make more space available and make it in a way that is affordable. So our vision, let's go to the next slide, right? This is our vision. We'll get into a little bit more detail about this, but basically it's what would you like for your children, for your grandchildren, for the children across the street that you've seen grow up, right? We want a preschool that experience for children that's joyful, it's culturally responsive, it's inclusive, it's developmentally appropriate, and for all 3 and 4-year-olds. Now, in our funding model, we're most likely going to be looking at high need 3-year-olds to begin with, and all 4-year-olds. So our next slide here talks about our preschool framework. We tried in our response to those challenges that I mentioned earlier, we wanted to make sure that our preschool was first, that it's accessible and equitable, that it's supportive and sustainable and smart and accountable. So we have a variety of ways that we're doing that here. We want to prioritize, children of color, children who speak other languages other than English, children experiencing poverty, children with developmental delays and disabilities, right? So we're really making certain that we're prioritizing those children. But again, this is universal preschool, or preschool for all. So, but it would have a ramp up, and initially we would be targeting those children with higher needs. We also recognize that families have different needs. Each family is unique. Each family's work situation is unique. And so wanting to provide full day, part day, extended day programs. So maybe you're in preschool for 6 hours, but then you're still able, as a parent, you're still able to keep your children at that site until you're able to pick them up after school. Also, some families need year-round options, and others really prefer school year options. And then as well as multi-generational and culturally specific learning programs are also critical to adapting to the family's needs. We're also looking at mixed delivery models, which means that families could choose between in-home programs, center-based programs, school district run programs, or housed programs as well. And then, of course, promoting inclusive environments is really critical. I think we've seen movement at the state level and at the national level about the damage that is done when teachers reach that breaking point and they feel that they need to send a child home with suspensions or expulsions. And I just see a question there about faith-based preschool programs. Yes, Rachel, they would be included in this model. Right. So basically, anybody who can show that they can meet the criteria for providing a safe and supportive environment for those children. And we will need everybody at the table because, as we mentioned, we do have, we have a dearth of opportunities for children or spaces. So faith-based community is going to be critically important. The Muslim Education Trust has been very involved in this effort as well. They have a preschool. They're really eager to see that expand, and we'd like to see, other groups as well who are providing from a faith-based perspective. So supportive and sustainable. Our model would add capacity as quickly as possible, but again, as I said, we have this ramp up. Similar, we're very fortunate to have Multnomah County to the north that we are learning a lot from them. of course, we are also designing a program that meets Washington County's unique needs as well. And then, as I said earlier, it's critical that we're offering a living wage to providers, and that we're offering providers, teachers, instructional aides the opportunity to grow their career, that they can really see this as a career path for them. But that's really difficult to do if you are already somebody with a relatively low income, and you may have children at home, and then you're working full time. And so being creative about providing those opportunities for parents, so that, or for the workforce, that means we really need to develop equity-focused pathways to higher education, as well as community training. And then preserve and increase the diversity of the workforce through credential requirements. There are some preschool teachers who in their home countries have been doing amazing work for a long time, and we need to find ways to really credit their experience and learning. And lastly, this being smart and accountable. I want to make sure we have that community-based oversight so that this model stays closely in touch with the parents and the community that it's meant to serve. Yeah, so that, let me see, I think then I go to this next slide, which is, this is the model that we're currently proposing for funding. And this is what you call a marginal tiered income tax on higher income earners. We know that if you are making more than $125,000 a year as an individual, or $200,000 as a joint, you might think, well, why do I have to pay for this? And I think our response is twofold. And one is there are a lot of benefits that high income earners receive by being part of a well-functioning, well-operating state and county. All of the infrastructure that is there that we're all paying for. And then there's all the externalities that those businesses where they work, externalities in the sense of perhaps pollution that is caused by that business, that really is being, the burden of that is being carried by all of us. So this is one way to spread the wealth that some are accumulating and others are not. And then the other piece of this is our current taxing system is not going to cover the cost at this point of preschool for all within the state. And yet we can't just say, well, that's too bad. We can't pay for this, for the state can't pay for this, so we're not going to move forward. So it's our sense that the time is well past for us to do something. Okay. A little more detail there, but I don't need to provide all of that. So this was the poll that we mentioned that we conducted. I think it was last spring, maybe it was last fall. Things with COVID, right? We all know that everything just sort of has blurred. But what's exciting about this is we did test 3 different funding mechanisms, and so you'll see that the top one on the left there is a high income tax, which is pretty much what was shown in that earlier slide. And then in the center, we have, what would this look like if we had a payroll tax, which would mean that the employer would pay this. Of course, the employer might pass that on to their employees, but it would be paid by the employer. And then the bottom one was if we had a mid-income tax, so that would mean that those who earn over 41,000 would pay, or if you're a couple, if you earned over 82,000. And one of the things I didn't mention on that earlier slide is that it's a marginal tiered tax income, which means that if you're making $125,000, and that's what you make, this means it's for those who are making over $125,000, or maybe it's right at $125,000. So you only pay the tax on what you make above that amount, right? So you're not taxed on your first $125,000, or as a couple of your first 200. You're only taxed on what you make above that, and then you're only taxed at 1.5% for the first 200,000 if we're talking about a couple, and then then it increases to an additional 1.5% for any income that you earn over 400,000. So it ends up being a very small tax on individuals. So if you are making 150,000, you might be paying, $100 a year for this tax. So it's pretty minimal. All right, so back to this slide again. This again just shows the level of support. So there's 54% support for a high income tax. And then that dropped down, whether it was a payroll tax or the middle income tax. And the middle income tax is really it contravenes what we're attempting to do, because we know that families that are in that middle income bracket really can't afford preschool. And over there on the right, there's those 3 columns, and then the list of the way that we broke this out into demographics, or whether you're a parent or a non-parent, or whether you have where your income level is. And then you can see there the always support amount for this tax. So I know there was a lot of information. We are going to have some time for questions. So we're going to pass it back to Olga now.
Thank you, Bridget. Okay, we have a path to the ballot. We have 2 years to gather the required 9,940 signatures from the time the petition is approved. Our plan is to submit by August 7th, so it goes on the ballot November 5th, and that's 2024. Next, we have a couple of slides that describe the path to the ballot. So the initiative process here would start with a campaign securing the legal assistance to draft the measure language, ship petitioners filing, the district attorney drafting the ballot, and any registered voter can file a challenge, which is something that we are also expecting might happen. Once the ballot title is final, any challenges resolved, the campaign can begin to gather the signatures. Again, 2 years to make it to the ballot. Elections officials verify the signatures. If the petition has the required number of signatures, the measure is qualified to the ballot. And yes, the campaign kicks off. And just to a note on who we are, we have been together for about a year. It's been a year in the making. We have very, very strong engagement from community leaders, elected officials, the school districts, the Northwest ESD. As you can see here, we had a phase 1 participation, and that was for the task force. And if you can go to the next slide, we continue now in phase 2 as a steering committee. What happened is we had several subcommittees as part of phase 1, and that merged into now phase 2. It brought people from the various committees and the task force. And so we are moving forward. I am hopeful for a brighter future for Washington County children and families. So it is, to me, something that's I'm very, very passionate about. Next. Excellent. And we are now at the questions phase.
I have an initial question. How do other organizations kind of sign on and become involved in that phase 2 or whatever subsequent phase you are engaged in?
That is a very good question. We have a survey that we passed around earlier a couple of times when we were organized as that task force, trying to get kind of a sense of where people were. It was a soft endorsement. It's not, because we're not in campaign mode, so it wasn't a real endorsement, but that was testament of your positionality in terms of preschool for all. And so we would be more than happy to share that with you, anyone here
Other questions for Olga or Bridget? Or comments? Okay.
I think Rebecca may have
Rebecca,
been.
feel free,
yeah.
Rebecca.
Sorry, I go thumbs up and then hand, can't figure it out
I
still.
think you were on the second screen. I couldn't see.
Wonderful job. I just want to say you guys are such amazing champions. So thank you for just continuing on this journey and pathway for our community and our kiddos and our families.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I see a note in the chat, a question from Katie Riley. What happens if there's federal support for childcare and pre-K? Wouldn't that be amazing? And we are also looking at state support. And our assumption based on circumstances is that it is going to take several years, but we cannot wait. Our community cannot wait. There's an urgency for childcare and preschool for our children. Washington County, I don't think that we mentioned that, but it's considered a child care desert. There are many, many children that are not being served. And so, yes, 5 years, 10 years down the road, if we get the federal support, great. Our taxpayers will be relieved and happy.
And do we have any idea of how realistic it will be to get those 15,000 to 16,000 signatures? You want to shoot for that to achieve the 9,000 some. It seems like a very doable task over the next couple of years, but I'm not a campaign expert, so I'm curious to know what you've been advised.
Yeah, what we've been told, because likewise, I have been involved, of course, in passing around petitions, but never sort of managing this. So we've been told by our advisors that, yeah, that even with volunteers, we should be able to collect that number of signatures, that it shouldn't be hard to do. Because Olga said, we're aiming for the 15,000. So that we are sure to have enough valid signatures. But absolutely love seeing these notes coming in from Rachel and from Nadia, because this is how we're going to get it done, right? Anybody can collect signatures, right? That's as a volunteer campaign. So we will, after the ballot is approved and we're ready to start collecting those signatures, we'd love Glenn to make available to you so you can share with the network if anybody else would like to do so, to collect signatures with their community. And we will add Nadia and Rachel to our list so we can get the two of you involved.
Some of you who have been around long enough with Washington County Thrives may recall that when we were first, the campaign for the affordable housing bond back in 2017-18, Washington County Thrives took a position to support that, and there were a lot of folks who were involved in Thrives that did door-to-door actual, door knocking campaigning. It wasn't about signature gathering. It was going door to door, talking to people about the ballot initiative and asking people to support it. So it's not unprecedented for Thrives to take on an advocacy position and to participate in this way. So I hope, Olga and Bridget, you keep us updated on the schedule of when you're going to be engaging and how people can grab a hold of whatever it is you're doing and join you in that process.
Thank you, Glenn. Well, there was one question, actually two, one from Katie and one from Chad, that I would like to respond quickly if I can.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, our vision is childcare, preschool for 3 and 4 year olds. And so in terms of older children, many of us are working with state agencies and school districts to ensure that we have after school programming for older children. all the way through 12th grade. I personally am very involved with that. And to respond to Chad's question, what we are doing right now to support 3 and 4-year-olds, we are taking advantage of amazing opportunities that are out there at the local and state level to provide preschool for children. We have in the Hillsboro School District up to 24 preschools now. We have an amazing, strong partnership with Head Start, Community Action, Adelante Mujeres, Cairo, and we are offering services to 3 and high needs 3 and 4-year-olds. I wish that I could say all 3 and 4-year-olds, but because all of the programs are grant funded, we are not able to do that. However, each year we have been expanding. This year we added 3 preschools in 3 different elementary schools. So that is super exciting.
And I just wanted to add one thing too. I mean, you might, depending on how closely you've been watching the Multnomah County's rollout, and then some of the concerns related to the supportive housing measure that also is, I believe, right, it's a high income, something else, right? Tiered,
Yep.
Right. We do anticipate pushback. We had initially intended to have our county commissioners refer this to the ballot, which then would have saved us a whole lot of time and resources, because we wouldn't have had to hire the attorney or collect all these signatures, and we would have been able to launch preschool in 2024. Now we're looking at a 2026 launch, because the funding, we wouldn't approve this until 2024, and then it would be the 2025 year that taxes would be collected. So it's additional 2 years that our families are struggling to find affordable childcare, affordable and quality preschool. So we do know that there is concern out there from the business community. So that is another significant ask that we have as ambassadors for our families, ambassadors for the community, in terms of, if you have somebody you know who works in the business community, you have family members who are in the business community, or you yourself are connected with the business community, we're very interested in having conversations with you. We don't want to push this down people's throats. Of course, we would love to see everybody involved. We've had multiple conversations with the county commissioners. And I think philosophically they support it, but they also are somewhat concerned about the political climate right now. And so they need to hear from us too. Ideally, the county, I see Rebecca works with the county, and the county staff, if I can say so, the county staff is very eager to support this effort. But of course, they're in a different place than our county commissioners are in terms of what they're tasked with doing. So we would love any support or any questions or contacts with folks, because having a really high quality preschool, there's probably nothing better that you can provide for your businesses to have the workforce that they need in the future, as well as a real point of attraction for their current workforce. So you may have heard, we thought this was that the county commissioners were going to be approving this, and that was the original path we were on, which is why we've been meeting all this time and yet haven't yet put anything on the ballot, because we've had to move sort of to our option B in this effort.
Thank you, Bridget. Rebecca, have you got something?
I have one more question, and Bridget and Olga, you guys have probably already done this, but knowing kind of our county and our commissioners and their thinking, we have such a workforce shortage overall. And I'm wondering how much that has to do with the lack of childcare, preschool, and those kind of components. And I don't know if are you guys collecting data on that? Or, I mean, it's a given, right? But if we can really connect it to what we're experiencing in our county.
I think, Olga, I could say a word about that, but how come your ideas too? But So, yeah, what we do know is that the city of Beaverton has had a work group working on this precisely because it is such a significant barrier for the city's workforce. And I know, but we as the Preschool for All task force, or now Preschool for All ballot committee, we have not done the research. Our funding is limited, but if anybody is aware of other entities that are working on this, or that may have more local, if it's not all of Washington County data, certainly Washington County Kids with Katie has also had their eyes on this in terms of what the challenges are. But yeah, it'd be great to have more data on that as we're having those conversations. That I'm going to write that down. See, because Eco Northwest, we've had a partnership with Eco Northwest, and they may well have that data already and could just pass it over to us.
And we could, Bridget, Evan's almost done with our contract with Eco Northwest. We could maybe add in some of these questions on the slide.
We would love it.
Yeah, so let's connect with Evan and at some point and see, what we're asking Eco Northwest. Eco Northwest right now for us is doing kind of a mapping overall assessment of the whole childcare world in Washington County, which will include preschools. So that will hopefully help inform what's going on.
Great. Karen, I see your hand up.
I just have a quick question. I can tell you a lot about what the Department of Agriculture is doing, but I wonder who's keeping an eye on the Department of Education, what funds moves through that system, and how that can contribute to getting some of these programs started, maybe even at local schools to begin. So I just who's doing that? It's not
that is a very good question, Karen. There are many of us doing that. We have districts in Washington County have very, very strong partnerships with the Washington County Early Learning Hub. And from that work, we have representatives that attend key meetings with state representatives. Many of us are receiving funds directly from the state through Preschool Promise, preschool initiatives, and we are using those funds. In Hillsboro School District, I have half of the funds, about 30% of the funds that are used for preschool come from the state. And I also have, Adelante Mujeres also has representation at those meetings, and we are working with legislation and, bringing the issues to the front and, to the forefront. And we're having ongoing, weekly conversations with state people. So I'm excited to share that.
And maybe to keep in touch with this group with updates of how we can support what you're doing. Should we be calling this person, that person, writing letters to the editor? Because it's a popular topic that people do need to speak out in certain ways for certain movement.
Yeah, I expect most of you are connected to our Washington County Thrives email list. If you haven't gotten on that, you should. So that's one way we will do our best to share information with this broader network. All right. Well, I want to thank Olga and Bridget for the presentation. It's been great having you two. I wish you good luck as you move forward in this process. And I'm sure we'll be inviting you back.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you. We need all the support we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for your great input and questions. Just really nice to be here. I'm going to stay on because I'm interested in the behavioral health update.
Thank you. All right.
I'm able to join these meetings and always enjoy having opportunity to connect with you all when I can. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Olga.
Well, I'm going to transition us then to our next topic, and this is the Behavioral Health Initiative, supporting the workforce. You know, it's another sector that is severely impacted, and it was just like our preschool system, suffering even prior to the pandemic. And now other issues have come to light because of the pandemic. So for those of you who are new, Van got involved. We did a summit back in March. We had about 90 people attend, and we came up with 4 focus areas, and they were, you know, one, immediately try to figure out ways to shore up the workforce in the behavioral health sector. Another was to look at immediate care for those who are in the sector, supporting the workers. Related to that, and here's some of the preschool piece, is the child care component. So how can we provide immediate care for some of our workers and clients? Well, some of them are stressed and not able to work or do what they need to do because they don't have child care. So that topic rose to the surface during our summit. And then an overarching awareness campaign, just as Bridget and Olga talked about the need to raise the level of awareness of the need for good pay for teachers and the value that they provide to our community. We need to do the same for the behavioral health sector. And so those were the 4 main themes. And then woven into those themes was a focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. How do we look at culturally responsive and culturally specific approaches to improving our behavioral health sector? So Van has been working on these 2 components of those 4 themes. We are doing some work directly in this workforce development piece. And we are also, through our social media and through a broader effort that we are hoping is going to come into play, focused on that awareness campaign. To that end, I want to share with you that we are going to be having a virtual event on November 9 that we're calling the Jobs and Career Pathways in Behavioral Health. This is with our largest providers in Washington County, LifeWorks, New Narrative. Julie here is on the call today. She's in the room with us. And Sequoia Mental Health Services. So those 3 providers who were involved in the summit, we've continued conversations with them, and we're organizing this virtual event to focus on everything from part-time jobs to people who are looking at launching a career, whether they're early on, you know, they're students and they're looking at that, or maybe they're making a mid-career change or considering that. We've already got 80 people registered. We're looking forward to that event. You know, we're still 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off. So we're expecting that number will tick up a little bit. But happy to have you all promote this as you're able. If you know folks who are interested, these are the links to register, and we have a wonderful social media packet that Jenny has provided. I think Jenny's going to put these links in the chat. So feel free to spread the word on this particular event. And then beyond the virtual event, that's kind of the teaser for what we're hoping is going to be an even larger event that will be in person on Saturday, January 21. That's going to be at Village Church in Beaverton, just south of Highway 26 on Murray Boulevard. It's a great space. We will be expanding the provider participation. We're going to be looking at also the culturally specific organizations that are doing behavioral health work, those who are serving beyond the metro region. We want this to be, you know, the event that everybody wants to go to if they're interested in behavioral health. So on the heels of the November 9 event, we're going to be jumping right into the planning phase. We already are, in fact, there's some overlap here for that January 21st event. And as we develop materials for that, we will be sure to be sharing those in Van's newsletter. If you follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll also see announcements about the January 21st event. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that with Bridget's group, Adelante Mujeres, and with Ruth Zuniga, who's a co-founder and executive director of Raíces de Bienestar, They are a culturally specific behavioral health provider. We submitted a grant to the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and we are still awaiting word on that. They were supposed to let folks know, I think by September 9th. They told us in August that they were inundated with applications. It would be mid-October before we heard anything. We're in mid-October. We still haven't heard anything. So we're waiting to hear on a grant there, but Van and Raíces de Bienestar and Adelante, we're going to develop a cohort model in moving forward on initiatives that both of those organizations are keen to advance, and this funding would go a long way to moving them forward. And Van would be acting as a coordinating agent and doing some of that awareness campaign work that I referred to earlier. So we're crossing our fingers. That's a quick, broad brushstroke of behavioral health, the update from me, and I'm happy to entertain questions if you have those. And I also would invite Allie or Jenny, if you all have anything you want to add to what I've shared, feel free to do that. Yeah, Rebecca.
Hey, Glenn, did you guys see the Kaiser Permanente grant?
Refresh my memory on which one that is.
It's the one in partnership with the Coalition of Communities of Color. I can send it to you. It might be a good one to support this work.
Yeah, Jenny.
I did see that, and it's not quite fitting.
It doesn't, not quite the fit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say I vaguely recall that, but I'm pretty sure we looked at it and said, nope.
Okay. Okay.
Not something we can engage in. Other questions or comments? Yes, Carol and then Karen.
Yeah, I put my question in the chat, so it's
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at that. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. I addressed our problem with finding people in shelter care and that kind of thing. Is this something that we can also piggyback on in some way? It certainly includes a behavioral health component.
In terms of the work that's being done at the shelters.
In terms of, yes, in terms of recruiting workers so that we can open up more beds, because our case managers, we can't recruit case managers.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have been asked by the supportive housing services folk at Washington County.
Yes.
He said, hey, this looks great. Can you do this for the housing and shelter? So you're echoing that question. And we've also had another question on another sector altogether that's kind of under this broad human services spectrum. We are happy to entertain that. We would like to make our January event focused on the behavioral health sector. And yet, if there is funding to support the work that we can coordinate and kind of duplicate or replicate a similar type of outreach and recruitment, we are happy to do that. So I am in contact with the supportive housing services folk at the county, DAVS, the Department of Aging and Veteran Services, their workforce development folks, because they've now stood up a workforce development office. They've got a director and other staff. So we are in conversation with the county on that. Happy to include providers, in that process, whether Carol, if you're connected to some, Brian, I know Brian Schimmel, who was on the call, is working out in the western part of the county. So yeah, stay tuned on that.
Thank you. I think we're all recruiting from the same pool, so it becomes a real dilemma as we push forward one sector over another in a way.
Totally true.
Yeah.
And we had to kind of weigh that. Our team was just having a conversation about that yesterday, a debate on, okay, do we dilute our focus and try to bring in more sectors to this? Or do we focus on where we began? And we fell on, well, we made a commitment to focus on the behavioral health sector first and foremost.
And I certainly support that as a member of the Behavioral Health Council. We're desperate.
Yeah. So
Thank
we
you.
want to do that well. And then we can certainly learn from that. And if the county wants to help us put another one on,
Thank you.
we are ready to serve in that capacity. Other questions or comments? Molly, did you just raise your hand? Or was that?
I will. I was going to ask, when you're looking at the behavioral health workforce, are you including peers and recovery mentors and people at that level?
Yes, and that is that will be one of the expanded focus areas for the January event. Yes,
Excellent.
so we absolutely would love to have your organization involved in that. And I've been, Janie and I, she was involved in the summit, and we've been connected, and so she will be getting an invitation. And perhaps she'll tag you to participate.
I'm the Washington County Peer Delivered Services Coordinator. So
Excellent. Well, perfect. I'm glad you're here.
Glenn,
Yes, Julie.
can I just comment on that?
Of course.
In the last couple of years, we at New Narrative have made a big push to integrate peer support services into our service offering. And we definitely want to be recruiting for more peer support specialists. We've been growing quite a bit, and every single new program that we open, we are including peer support specialists in the staffing patterns on the coordinated care teams. And so we're definitely looking for more talent in that category.
Thank you, Julie. And I should add that Julie has joined the Thrive's leadership team, which we have Katie Riley here and Julie, and who else? Brian was here. I don't think Brian is still here unless he's on another screen and I'm not seeing him. Anyone else here on the leadership team? There are several others, including Bridget Calfee, Kemp Shuey. I know Kemp couldn't make it today, and I think I'm missing someone. But we have the Thrive's leadership team that is a great sounding board and resource to me to help guide our agendas and the direction of Thrive. So I'm appreciative that Julie was willing to step in and play a role in that regard. Yes, for the virtual event on November 9, our focus, we're going to have a couple of breakout sessions. One of them is going to focus on residential support staff, which is kind of an entry-level position of which some people work part-time, some people are full-time. So that'll be one focus area, and then the other will be kind of that career-oriented path. So folks are going to get an opportunity to hear a little bit about each of the providers before we break out into those focus sessions. And then the January event, we're going to have a whole lot more going on. I'm expecting a very energized, engaging event, like a job fair, like you might think of a traditional job fair with hundreds of people running around, throwing their resumes about. So we're excited for that. Anything else? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, we have well, again, a reminder of our next gathering, January 19th. We will make sure to let folks know what format that's going to be in. I'm expecting it may be a hybrid event. And we'll also keep you apprised of whether or not we can corral legislators and have a nice special gathering to talk about the 2023 session. And with that, we never keep people any longer than we have to. Just because we say we meet till 10 doesn't mean we have to stare at each other until 10. I want you to be able to take advantage of the rest of the day and do what you need to do. So unless there are any other comments or lightning round announcements that were missed at the beginning of the meeting, if anybody has a final announcement that you really want to share, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. Seeing none, I wish you a good day. Be well, take good care,